you like really aware of the problem, and not just here in the United States but everywhere. By showing like the food security, it like gives a more like definite, this is how it is in this country, so you can like better understand their situation and possibly like what you could do to help.
The website's very interactive and it made it interesting to learn.
Thanks for joining us here on Agri-Pulse, talking now with Bob Dinneen, who is the president and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association. And Bob, when you're talking ethanol, when you're talking renewable fuels, the three letters that always comes to mind are RFS, that Renewable Fuels Standard. And we're still waiting to hear from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Office of Management and Budget about what the 14 volume levels will be, and that burden, that bog down. What has that done to the ethanol industry, not knowing how much ethanol they're supposed to produce as they're producing it?
Well, it really has not impacted the existing industry very much. The marketplace has determined what the number is going to be for 2014, and we will blend more than we ever have. We have produced more than we ever have. The ones that are really impacted are those folks that are looking to commercialize new technologies. The cellulosic ethanol, the advanced biofuels folks that are just now on the cusp of commercialization, that are trying to get financing for their new projects. And if you're going to invest in an energy industry, you want some assurance that it's a growing marketplace, that there's going to be a spot for your fuel when you produce it. And the signal that EPA has sent through this year of not acting on the RVO is that this is not going to be a growing marketplace. So if you've got an energy dollar to spend it on fracking, spend it on deep water drilling, put it any place other than biofuels, because there's no future here.
It's not just a hot issue for the ethanol industry, but it's a hot issue for the farm economy. And you know, over the past 5 years, we've had the greatest economic prosperity in rural America that we've ever had in the history of this great country. And that pull demand from ethanol has helped balance commodity supplies and demand into the point where farmers were getting a profit from the marketplace. Now that you're not seeing more growth in ethanol and biofuels policy and back-to-back record crops, we're starting to see prices go the opposite direction. So the impact is more than our industry, it's the whole economy. I like to tell people a rising tide lifts all boats, and a sinking ship brings them all down in their wake. And we're now going towards the sinking side, as most farmers are not even getting the cost of production out of the price that they're receiving today. So our success helps drive success for all of rural America. You know, EPA, I think, has admitted, I think the administration has admitted, and others, they got it wrong, and they really did. They totally missed a mark on the proposed rule, because the methodology they used for lowering the volumes from the statutory numbers was basically based on what was used the year before. Well, that doesn't create any pull demand, and that was never the goal of the RFS.
What I care about is the future of the program. And if EPA sticks to its proposal and finalizes a 2014 rule that at its foundation uses a methodology based on how much infrastructure is out there for higher level blends, how much demand for these fuels are out there, that's where the problem is. They will have then turned this program over to ExxonMobil, because in 2015 and 16 and ever more, they will have established a precedent that the oil companies can determine how much renewable fuels they're going to blend based on how much infrastructure they are willing to allow. That's not what the RFS was intended to do.
The goal of the RFS is to get to 36 billion gallons by 2022. And if you only put in or utilize the amount that was used a year before, it's always going to be stagnant. It makes no sense.
The RFS was designed to break the monopoly that the oil companies have on the gasoline pump, to assure that there would be investments in the infrastructure to allow higher level blends, to encourage refiners to move beyond that 10% ethanol box. And if EPA promulgates this rule, as we expect that they will, and they rely upon demand, and they conflate supply and demand, then they will have done great damage to this program, and I fear for the future growth of the industry.
And looking forward, we now have a Republican House, Republican Senate, but still a Democratic president. So what does the next 2 years of the Capitol Hill and Washington makeup mean for renewable energy policy?
Well, I think it's going to be exciting. There are changes that will have an impact on the industry. The fundamental mathematics of ethanol politics has not changed, though. Oil companies still need 60 votes on the floor of the United States Senate in order to undermine or repeal the RFS. They do not have that.
The candidates who were incumbent candidates who were pro renewable fuels that were replaced by candidates that are also pro renewable fuels. The ones who lost weren't our supporters in the first place.
Ethanol is not a partisan issue. We've got great support on the Republican side of the aisle. People forget it was Republican President George Bush working with a Republican Congress and Republican Senator, Chairman of the Energy Committee, Pete Domenici from New Mexico, that passed the RFS in 2005. And President Bush, again, worked with us to get the 2007 bill done with a Democratic Congress. This is not a partisan issue. Chuck Grassley, John Thune, new senators coming in, Mike Rounds, Joni Ernst, they understand what ethanol means for their local communities. They understand implicitly the value of ethanol to rural economies, to consumers, to our energy and environmental future. And I suspect that they are going to be as committed as the people that they are replacing.
And so there was no real net gain for our opponents or net loss for us, except in the committee chairmanship.
Now, Jim Inhofe, as chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, being from Oklahoma and waking up every morning and looking in the mirror and saying, how can I mess with farmers today? How can I undermine the ethanol industry today? Will use that new forum that he has at the EPW committee to hold hearings, to introduce legislation, to make our lives miserable. But at the end of the day, he's got to get to the Senate floor with something that will pass. I think Mitch McConnell is going to be far more interested in putting points on the board and getting things done and demonstrating that Republicans can govern than he's going to want to, pursue the agenda of the oil companies that are just looking to protect their monopoly over the gasoline pump. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun. I'm going to enjoy doing battle with Senator Inhofe, but at the end of the day, I don't see much change.
And as much as the ethanol industry is currently producing, does it have the capacity to produce that much more? Should regulatory burdens be lifted?
Absolutely. We have every year, even the first generation ethanol hadn't reached its best efficiencies that are available out there. Every year we use less energy, less water, get a higher yield per bushel of corn in the conversion to ethanol. That'll only increase. But next generation is on the cusp. Like I mentioned, there are 3 ethanol plants that opened this year using biomass as a feedstock. That will expand if there's a signal that we're going to be able to compete in that marketplace. We say let the consumer make the choice based on price, performance, type of vehicle, and don't shut us out of the market.